Hey folks, John here from A is for Alcoholic again. Today's conversation is with Drew Talbert. He is a writer, comedian, actor, performer. I found him on TikTok doing restaurant or service industry sketches. Absolutely hilarious, totally spot on and fantastic. And then he mentioned one time that he was sober, and I thought it would be great to have him on the show. So we discussed getting sober, we discussed being high and drunk and being an addict in the restaurant business, which has a whole nother layer of exhaustive pain to it. So it was a great conversation, and I really loved his take on getting sober, and that he talks a lot about the hope that he found that led him to where he is now. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Drew Talbert. Good morning, Drew. Thank you so much for doing this. It's always a pleasure to find somebody else out there on the internet, as it were, in real life, that is sober and doing fun and creative stuff. Not only that, but as somebody who's been a bartender and a server for, 15 years now, I definitely can relate to all of the content that you create. And for those listening who don't know, what I just call it Bistro Hoodie. I mean, is that that's the fictional...
that's the name of the restaurant that all the videos take place in. I was working on a sketch early on and needed a name I was making a fake menu, and my son's name is Hudson. And I was like, Bistro Hoodie. I was in a hurry, and so I just did that, printed out the fake menu, and then it became Bistro Hoodie, named after him though.
Yeah, my favorite was one of the most recent ones was the one where the bartender comes up with the fancy cocktail, because that was also my job as the lead bartender in many places, was to come up with these cocktails. And as you know, we all love to be fancy and stroke our own egos and shrubs and tinctures and blah blah blah, and then you're like, how am I out of egg whites and it's only 5:30 or whatever, right?
Now you have to make them. Yeah, you have to literally make them in the middle of the rush. I saw it so many times. I never bartended. I was always a server, 23 years of serving, but like I would see it from the server's point of view, the bartenders rolling their eyes at me ordering the very thing they created. And I'd forgotten about it. The idea came from someone who watches the videos, who messaged my wife the idea. So that's what some of the ideas come that way. People send them in, and we note it with a little credit, idea by or whatever. But that one was. But a lot of times someone will submit an idea like that. I'm like, oh yes, it just brings the memory.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of material, right?
Yeah,
I'm constantly thinking of things when I'm at work. Yeah. Well, I also, you mentioned this a while back about being sober, and that was the reason why I wanted to have you on and discuss this, especially somebody who has gotten sober and worked in restaurants, because as we know, those of us who have worked in restaurants, and for those who haven't, they are fraught with peril. Alcoholism, drug abuse, promiscuity, any number of horrible bad habits that will ruin your life if left unchecked.
So anger, resentment,
right? Anger and resentment every single moment for ridiculous things, because my Brussels sprouts aren't ready, or they came out too quick, whatever. But
just the way that the tone that you're treated with sometimes as a full-grown adult feels very, just can get to you at times.
Yeah. Um, so when you like, and so what is your sobriety date, or what would you consider your clean date?
No, well, no, November 10th of 2014.
Okay. Okay. So 7 years,
Almost 7 years, coming up on
almost
7 years.
7 years. Awesome. Well, congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
Um, what was the first, like the earliest memory you have with alcohol, in either with yourself or family, or as a kid or as a teenager? How far back does it go?
So for me, it came late. I was raised in a very religious house, and they were teetotalers. I think I saw my dad drink wine maybe like 5 times, and when he had an upset stomach or whatever. I learned later he drank early, like when he was a teenager in his 20s. There was this whole side to him I never knew till later. But they were and legit teetotalers. They were like all in, very happy, and it just wasn't around. And then I was really happy with my circle of friends that didn't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so my life kind of revolved around this church we were going to. And so I wasn't even that tempted by it, avoided parties and that kind of thing. And then in college, I ended up going to this college, same kind of thing. It wasn't around my circle of friends that much. It was a very unusual college experience. I loved it, but it just wasn't circled around that. And it wasn't till I think well, I had had like maybe a sip of a beer, something in my early 20s and stuff like that. But I got intoxicated the first time. I was like 21, after I'd moved to I moved from Tennessee to California. I was starting to reprocess. I rethinking everything I believed in terms of religion and social things and like my world point of view. And so I was in a state of kind of like, for the first time, away from where I grew up and kind of being able to explore ideas and things. And this big changes in my life there. And with that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll try this and that. So, and it was very infrequent though. I didn't drink heavily that much still. And it wasn't until literally my 30s, when I'd been drinking for a while regularly at that point, but I ended up in a relationship with this woman, and she introduced me to ecstasy. And I resisted it for a while. I was actually offended that she would push it on me, because I was very anti-drugs, even though I drank regularly. And but the short version of the end of this, so it'll drag on forever, is basically it went from that to doing that kind of on a regular basis with her, and then a small group of friends, and then it went into cocaine, and that's the one that really got me, and I became very addicted to that. And the drinking just kind of kept escalating throughout all that. And
Right.
it was tied in completely. But the one that really made me go off the rails substance wise was the cocaine. And she and I agreed to stop doing it. And then she did, and I couldn't. So then I was secretly doing it behind her back while we were living together. And, getting I always had to have my own bag with me at parties, even if there was some shared. And, I was doing it, waking up, doing it, working completely loaded, and, all that constantly. And it was, tried to quit on my own a few times, that kind of thing. And then I think I maybe passed the answer to your first question though. So.
Well, yeah. So cocaine was the main one, right? Not necessarily alcohol. So in my
Correct. Yeah.
experience, cocaine was always the way that I could drink more. It was always the way,
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, let's snort a couple of lines and then we can drink for the next 4 hours or whatever, after we'd already been drinking for 4 or 6 hours.
Yeah,
But
it totally does that. It helped me work. I could work, and people didn't even know how much I'd had to drink because of the cocaine.
Right.
Yeah.
But specifically, cocaine would be completely separate, or was alcohol always sort of attached to that?
Um, it's hard for me to like, if I went back in time before I was um, doing any cocaine, any of the hard or speed drugs or anything like that, and I was just drinking,
Mm-hmm.
I would tell you, if we go back in time, you and I right now, I would tell you I don't have a drinking problem. But I drank daily. Like she and I would have wine. There would be no way we'd go out to dinner or even like a lunch trip or something like that and not have wine or drinks. And we drank every night. I would drink until I was at least buzzed.
Mm-hmm.
But because I didn't ever, I don't think I put myself in too much harm's way, or, I held a job and never anything like that. I would have told you at the time I didn't have a drinking problem.
Hmm.
I don't know now looking back if I agree with that. You know what I mean? But it wasn't until the cocaine came into it that I felt completely powerless and out of control. That's when I had those feelings of like, I can't control this. Like I felt like with drinking, if someone said, "Oh, we can't drink tonight," I'd have no problem with that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until those came into the picture that, and for me, it was like when I decided to get clean, I knew I had to stop drinking too, because if I had a drink, it was only a matter of time before I was going to call a dealer or something. It just eliminated any chance I had at keeping
It
that
is
at bay.
it is definitely, alcohol is definitely more of a gateway drug than anything else I have found.
Yeah.
Because
It just kills your ability to resist,
yes, absolutely. So you had found cocaine, and it was working in some way for a while. At least that's how it felt. Um, and you were doing it with, I mean, outside of, there was no external um troubles or issues. Did you have?
Oh, it was, what's funny is like, I'm a relatively social person, but for me, the cocaine, after it really became a thing I did privately alone at home
Mm,
at night. So I'd go, let's say, work my shift at a restaurant, come home, she's asleep. She wakes up to train clients as a personal trainer in the morning. So I'm home relatively alone in this apartment, but in my little living room area. And that's when I would just do it until I would black out. I would just go till I would crash,
yeah.
drinking maybe, God knows how much. I'd have a drink or two at work, my shift drink, come home, completely get loaded up and do blow until I crashed. And just alone. And all it would do is just numb me. And I wasn't really I don't remember feeling that much high, or like,
Right.
it would be like maybe when you're doing it that much, it gets to a point where you get like 20 minutes maybe. And then it's like hours of just like the rat pushing the lever until you just collapse. And I would and just repeat every night like that. Matter of fact, going out socially and having a drink or something, I couldn't wait till I could get home and just go into my little mode. And it was tied in externally, like you were saying, to just feelings of failure. I was at an age, I'd moved out to LA to be an actor, writer, and it wasn't happening. The relationship was toxic. I'm with someone now it's amazing, and I have a really great relationship, but this particular person and I just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming her, just it wasn't right. And so I felt like a failure at every level. And I think for me, it was just like, it was a way to numb myself for 3 or 4 hours every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy to, I think the restaurant business requires a huge amount of vigilance to be in it and to live healthfully, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
not just drugs and alcohol alone, I'm
Mhm.
surrounded by delicious food filled with butter and salt and sugar that is always
Yeah.
almost consistently available to me, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So and it's
Yeah.
exhausting, and I'm on my feet, and oftentimes being, you know, like you said, being being treated less than as an adult, and you're like, I just need something to numb it. And it's very,
Yeah.
it is easy, and you know, I can completely understand it, and especially a home alone, wanting to just be alone and isolate away from people when I've had to deal with so many people
Yeah.
on a nightly basis,
Yeah.
hundreds sometimes, in a very high
Mhm.
stress situation. And I can remember some of those nights, with, this was speed in particular, but just being by myself in that room, like I couldn't wait to get there, and I knew I had my little secret stash.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. And then of course I was doing it during the day too. If she wasn't around, or I would,
Yeah.
those days when she was gone for hours, I'd get loaded and then go to work. Any chance I had alone, it was just like,
um and then, so were there other like legal consequences, or did anything come of this, or what was the breaking
yeah,
point?
yeah. You would think that would have done it, but I had I got arrested trying to purchase from an undercover officer in 2012, I believe. And and the California laws were good for me because it had been passed maybe 10, 15 years before that your first offense, because I'd never been arrested for anything. I was able to attend meetings, Narcotics Anonymous, and show the court I attended these meetings, and then they would take it off. And you could legally even say to future employers that you'd never even been arrested. So if you jump through these hoops going through the NA meetings, you can go back, show the proof of that, and under, I forget the name of the code or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you're good. But you do have a period of time where if I was arrested again, then it's retroactively like boom, boom, and you're going to prison. It would have been really bad. But
Right.
I did go to the NA meetings and I did show the court, and they did all that, and it was gone from my record, and I was able to carry about. So I only spent the one afternoon in jail. And then I was, out. And then you would think that would have scared me enough. And then I did for a while. And I remember that moment. I was literally walking, and they had basically arrested my dealer and then whenever his phone. And so when I texted my dealer, basically that's how it happened.
Got it.
So of course, I'm not going to contact that guy anymore. Right.
Right.
And I, for a few months after that, fine. I remember walking through the room I was serving in at this restaurant, and I feel a buzz in my pocket. And I went into the back area and I looked at it, and it was his name. He said, "Hey, this is so and so. I got a new number." And I remember, and people who are addicts will understand this feeling of inevitability, that feeling of like, I immediately knew it wouldn't be tonight because I'm scared this could be a setup too or whatever. But I remember it won't be tonight. It won't be maybe in the next day or two, but I am going to text this number and I'm going to try it. I just know I am. I'm fucked. Oh, sorry for the language.
No, it's fine.
And then it wasn't, I don't know, maybe a week. I couldn't resist it anymore. And I texted it. I'm going to go carefully. I'll meet him. And it was actually legit. He had got a new number, and boom, I was back on for another couple of years before I got clean. But it was just,
Yeah, there's that sort of sad sigh of resignation. Um,
yeah.
and I think about that because, you know, I've been 6 years sober, and I'm always sort of looking for moments where like, well, the relapse doesn't start with the first drink. It starts long before that. And so there's always little things like, am I not working my program well enough? Am I not doing the right things and stuff like that? And so I think that I'm hyper aware of that, but I also am not delusional enough to think that there aren't blind spots, right? Even for somebody who is really focused on this stuff, maybe I'm not
Oh,
focused
yeah.
enough, or, gosh, I haven't been to a meeting, a real meeting in a very long time, 2020 and all that stuff, right? So, I completely understand that you said the inevitability that it's going to happen,
Yeah,
and
that
it
feeling in
really
your gut or
sucks.
something like, I'm gonna
I
do
mean, it
this,
more than
aren't I?
sucks, it's awful, right? So you went back out for, or you were using again for, you said, a couple of years,
Yeah, because that
and
was 2012. Yeah.
so in a couple of years, what was the final snap, or was there a final snap?
It was like a moment of hope that came from creativity. It was like I remember I started writing these updates after I would come home from work about a table I had served that stood out to me, and sometimes they were like sweet moments between
Mm-hmm.
an older couple having a romantic moment that I got the privilege of witnessing because I was their server. Sometimes it was something funny that would happen. Sometimes it was a really obnoxious table, or like the dynamic between this husband and wife was so palpably cringy. And I would come home and write a funny little essay about it, I guess you could
Uh-huh.
say, David Sedaris style. And I called them or I'm sorry, server updates, because they were
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook updates, server updates. And because I mentioned I moved out to LA to be an actor, I had found a home at this improv theater and school called the Groundlings, and it's full of talented people, very successful people. A lot of that's where Melissa McCarthy and Will Ferrell and all them came out of. And so I have all these friends in the business that are working in the business. Anyway, I would write these, and the reaction was so different than anything else I had done, my little jokes or whatever on their videos I'd made. It was very obvious that this was striking a chord. And just from the overwhelming response, the comments come from people that I highly respected, and it was good, and it was creative. And I had killed so much of that just doing the drugs and feeling so hopeless and like a failure. And this was this crack of light creatively that I still had a chance to offer the world something, that I had spent my life trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
comedy and writing and acting. And so that was the moment I remember I'm not giving up yet, and I can't do this if I'm still doing that. And I texted my friend who had been clean for a while, who didn't even know I was doing it. I kept this so secret from people.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to a meeting and I'm dumping the rest of this out. I just needed to let someone know. Emptied the rest of the bag I had into the toilet, flushed it, and found the closest NA meeting. So the court system worked. It introduced me to NA and got me comfortable being in those rooms, even though I felt like a little bit of an outsider just doing it to check a box. But it told me where the rooms were. It helped me meet some people there. So when I was ready, it was easy for me to go. So
Yeah.
applause to the government. They got one, right there. and and then the other big thing was the relationship I have with my wife, Andrea. She and I had started to flirt at work. I met her at the restaurant, and we were talking and more. And it's really kind of like I'm really into her. And again, I can't pursue a relationship doing what I'm doing, and she didn't know about it.
Right.
So it was a combination of those two things that was the spark that helped me make the decision to do something real about this.
Well, I think this is great, because, and this is different than a lot of the stories that I've heard in my own personal one, where a lot of it comes from the sort of, people will call it the gift of desperation or the rock bottom, but rather you saw some hope come your way and you were able to say, you know what, I have to make this decision one way or the other. You obviously saw the darkness, you lived it, I mean, for years and years and years. And then to say, oh, okay, so here's something I'm interested in. Here's something that is getting positive feedback. I can either put my energy toward a relationship, toward writing, or I can continue to do what I've done and I see where I've been. Right.
And I knew I
So,
was going to end up either homeless or in jail or something. I could just feel it, And the
yeah.
guy in the studio apartment next to me passed away a month before that. This older guy, and he found out he drank himself to death. And I remember feeling like it was a combination of several things, leading up to it.
So in these meetings, and you said that uh you went in there, did you find that worked for you, or were there certain things you pulled from it? How long did you do that for?
9 months, going pretty regularly. Not every day, but many times a week, and
Right.
at first daily. And part of it was that I found a little group that I liked, and it was relationships and accountability is the biggest thing I would say.
Mm.
Just I'm wired that way anyway. I'm a people pleaser. I was always a good student. It's a good boy, growing up. So like
Mm-hmm.
I knew the reason I kept it so secret is that I knew the minute I told anybody, I was gonna probably overcome it. I just wasn't ready,
Mm.
So the minute I texted that friend and started showing up, I knew I had a good chance to
Right.
get this right because of the way I'm wired. And I had a good family background. And, I have some advantages that some people don't have trying to get clean.
Right.
And I knew if I just got the word out there. And so one of the first, I waited a few months till I'd shown myself I could even go a few months without. But then
Mm-hmm.
one of the next things I did was one at a time called people in my family face to face, through Zoom and FaceTime. I think at the time we weren't really doing a lot of Zoom then, and told them. So I'm like telling my parents, telling my sister, my brother, their spouses, for the first, they didn't even know. I'm like, hey, I'm an
Wow.
addict. I'm clean now. And I was very grateful that I had the chance to tell them, as opposed to them finding out I was in prison,
Right.
or dead.
Right.
So I feel very grateful for that. But that's one of the first things, just accountability. The rooms of NA gave me that. They gave me people, that I could talk to and counsel me, and structure for those when I'm
Mm-hmm.
first getting clean, just to have that. Got to go to this meeting today. That's the thing I'm doing, and that was great.
That's huge too. Structure is one of those things that I didn't realize how badly I needed to get sober.
Mhm.
I remember I wanted to try some different meetings, and I had been, going to AA meetings, and there, there's a lot of there's a lot of structure in AA. Some people might disagree with that, but I feel like there was for me. And I remember going to a Buddhist recovery meeting and
Mhm.
sitting there, and it was far more lax and it was far more sort of fluid. And I remember enjoying it. But when I got home and I told my girlfriend at the time, and I said, yeah, I don't know how any of these people are staying sober. There's no structure there. And she said, John, you're the one who needs the structure. Don't, you can't go blaming this other thing or thinking this other thing doesn't work. It's you who needs it. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was
Yeah.
something that I had learned about myself. And even
Mhm.
though I thought, well, being working in the restaurant biz, like, oh, I thrive on chaos and multitasking and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And then going, oh, wait a second, let's slow
Yeah.
down, take it one step at a time, pun intended. And
Yeah.
that was super helpful to me. So I wonder if you felt similarly about structure in the program, at least for the time that you were there.
Yeah, that definitely helped me to have that kind of. Mhm.
Yeah. And then so you've been 7 years sober now. Are you still in the restaurant business currently?
No, I'm just full-time making content now.
Okay. Um,
I stopped when COVID started, and then this took off
right.
during.
Well, there's another strange blessing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I had time
um,
with my 2.5 year old,
that
wife.
too.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about being sober and working in a restaurant. And
Sure.
the I think one of the things when we first get sober, we become hyper aware of our feelings, a lot of our bad feelings, a lot of our uncomfortable feelings. And in a restaurant situation, I'm often required to kind of shove that down and deal with the thing at hand, which is creating this fun experience for people, even though I may not be
Yeah,
into it. Was
yeah.
that challenging at first?
Yeah, yeah. I remember being mad at myself because I got clean sober right before the annual. I'd worked at this restaurant for like years,
Mm-hmm.
and every year they do this stout festival, and they're known for their 42 taps, always rotating amazing beers. And so they would do this, like 25 of the taps would become these rare stouts, all high gravity, rich, like my favorite beer anyway. And so I remember getting clean, and then like the next week was Stout Fest. I was like, damn it, I couldn't have waited a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I got through that, and I knew I could get through anything. And I remember like walking with trays, and like you reach, like the bartender puts the drinks up and you reach and grab them, and someone just dribble off onto your hand. You know what I mean? And just being
Yeah.
like, I just want to lick my hand right now. Like, it's like, it's literally all around you. Like booze is literally falling onto your skin as you're serving it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And like, and they would offer you a shift drink at this place. It was not a corporate place. It was just a chef owned, operated bistro. And so every shift you worked, you got a free beer. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always, I had to stop doing that. And that's really hard for me from even an economic standpoint, turning down a free
Right.
anything. I would be like, hey, can you just make this like a pulled pork sandwich? It's
Right.
hard.
It's so funny too, because I live in wine country, and there's always these field trips to the wineries and stuff like that. And I'm like, can I just get the $75 tasting fee that you're not having to pay? Can I get that? Because I don't do any of this stuff. And
Calculated
so
it once. I like did the numbers for the owner after like 5 years of being sober. I was like, here's how much I've saved you. Every drink is worth whatever, $5, $6. I guess cost is what I should have done, but
right.
like,
Yeah.
I did that times 5 a week times that. I was like 1,000. I'm like, you need to appreciate me more. I've saved you like $3,000.
Right, right. But also I think there's a lot of benefits to being sober in the restaurant business too. I don't think that it's all this torture of wanting to lick margaritas off your hands and stuff like that, right? I mean, there is that, and that definitely is something where you get a waft of something and I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me of that you get a little excited, but also I'm like, oh god, there's that
Yeah.
smell again. But I'm able to maintain a little bit better, a lot better, I
Uh-huh.
should say. And also, I mean, I can always, my salesmanship, right? It's still, well, what is give me the tasting notes on this Chardonnay and I'll just sell it, right? I don't have to
Yeah.
taste
Oh,
every beer.
that's what you do. And you have a memory of it. you know what it tastes like.
Right. And I'm also, I can,
Yeah.
just that I can maintain myself, my composure a lot better when I'm not drinking.
Oh, for sure. I'd gotten really, my temper had really gotten short. I remember when I was like really, I thought I was like a genius because I could get so loaded and go work. But I would just, my temper was so short and I was forgetting stuff, making mistakes, if I'm being really honest, and that all got cleaned up a lot. And yeah, I was able to take things in stride a little bit more, just a healthier, more present way to be. You just feel more present, I think.
Yeah.
When you're drinking, when you're an addict and you're in it, and you're using, you're always in the future. When can I get that? When can I get more of that? And when you're not, you're able to be in the present. It's impossible to be in the moment when you're using.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. For sure. Always thinking about the next drink or what I'm going to do later. That's
Yeah.
a great point. I mean, that goes with any addiction, right? I mean, that's
Yeah. You're never in the moment. You can't
always,
be.
yeah. I mean, even with me, I had an issue with ice cream in early and even the middle of my sobriety. And I was like, that was a big problem. And I was like, ice cream, this is insane. But it was the same exact thing. Gosh, when can I
Yeah.
get that next pint? Right. Um, so we're talking almost 7 years on. Is there anything in sobriety or recovery that you still struggle with?
I not in terms of like the actual substances. Like
Right.
I've moved to a point where maybe once or twice a year I'll have that little soft urge that goes away pretty easily. So that's
Right.
not really a problem right now. But it's more just the addictive traits like you're talking about with ice cream that I have to check myself with. Like right now it's with views, I'm making content and I found an audience, and TikTok in particular will just blow up your videos, and like I'm close to 1 million followers on there, and it's like videos will get really big views or they won't, and if I get a couple, my wife will notice. She's like, I'll be acting a certain way, short with her, with the kid, and like this. And she's like, she said it once, she's like, you're acting like this because your video's not doing well. And it's like, I become addicted to getting that feedback, that like validation, I think is the
Yeah.
word, through comments and likes, and I'm addicted to that. And sometimes I find myself making another one when I should just take some time off for mental health or to prioritize family or this and that. And I'm in the room making another one because I need another hit of those likes and that validation. And so that's actually, relatively speaking, a healthier version of it because it's productive and it's leading to some financial benefits to our family and things like that. But I have to be careful, and like we have conversations about it, my wife and I, and like dial it back sometimes and force myself. And I can feel it as an addict does. If I
Yeah.
like, okay, tonight I'm not making a video, I'm going to spend it doing this. I feel it. It's like almost under my skin.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that for anyone who does any big or small, creating any sort of content, video or otherwise for the internet, for the world, there's always this, at least, and for me, there's been a sense of productivity, right? And am I doing enough? And should I be doing more? And literally, there's nobody around asking me to do anything, other than the internet, right? Then I'm like, check those views. What are how many listens, how many downloads,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going,
Right.
there's no one around. No one, there's no, no one is sending me any memos about what I need to get done this week. And it's
Right.
all in my head. And I have to, again, like you said, dial it back and go, you know what? It's
Is work
really
ethic or is
okay.
this my addictive personality? Like what? And it's a little both. I'm not saying,
Hmm.
there's not a good, and quite frankly, there's other factors. My age, finally to find an audience in my 40s, I do need to like make hay right now. Like I don't,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not young, so like
Right.
there's some other parts of it, but I still have to struggle for balance, I think is what I'm saying,
Hmm. For
that
sure. For
addictive person.
sure.
That addictive personality was there before I started drinking or using drugs. It was. I remember the first sign of it was online poker. Before I ever was a heavy drinker, I got into that back in the early 2000s when a lot of people did, and I remember falling asleep betting and doing it in between shifts at a restaurant. So it's
Just like
there,
on your
just
phone.
waiting. It
Yeah.
was on the computer. It was like
Oh,
playing poker online,
wow.
and it was like, yeah. So it's like that addictive personality is just looking for the next thing to glom onto.
Hmm. Well, and my last question is, what advice for anybody who's struggling with any of this addiction in or out of the restaurant business? What advice would you give to somebody who maybe wants to quit?
I would say, based off my experience and what I've heard from other people, the biggest things are accountability and something to live for, something that you can get passionate about and care about doing that you want to do that gives you hope. It could be creative, it could be a relationship, but relationship is huge because it brings some accountability with it, and it gives you someone outside of yourself to care for, and something that can be bigger than you is a
Hmm.
relationship. And but find something that you actually want to do this for. It's not, I don't think it's enough just to want to be clean or sober for just the sake of it. This life is so absurd sometimes. It's just an absurd situation we're all in. The fact that we're even here and what are we doing? Wow, what is life? All these big questions. You have to have something that drives you on. It can be small. It doesn't have to be like changing the world, or it could be anything, that you
Yeah.
just really, you wake up and you want to do.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
you're absolutely right. Finding purpose, big or small, small or big. And yeah, well, thank you so much, Drew, for doing this and taking the time. Where can people find your stuff? Because I found you on TikTok, speaking as a
okay.
man in his 40s as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and it's absolutely hilarious and spot on. But where can people find you to check you out?
TikTok would be at Drew_Talbert.
Okay.
Uh, because there was already a Drew Talbert somewhere out there. And then Instagram, I post the same videos. 99% of the videos on TikTok are also on Instagram at Drew Talbert, all one word together. And then I post a lot of them on YouTube. I've kind of taken a break from that. I want to make YouTube feel a little different, but you can search for Drew Talbert on YouTube and you'll find me there. And then I'm on Facebook. I post almost all of them on Facebook. Have a page there. That's it's a fun community of most. Facebook's the most, almost all service industry people.
Right.
So they found me there. And so if you're not on TikTok or Instagram, but you're on Facebook, just look for me there too.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you for taking the time to share. And I think it's a very important thing to remember, especially being in the restaurant business, that it can feel like a trap. And congratulations, in addiction in the restaurant biz, feeling like a trap. And also, like I was saying, congratulations on being able to do this full time.
Yeah.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
I've always been very grateful for my opportunities in the bar and restaurant industry, and I would not besmirch it at all. But also, yeah, I'm always happy to see somebody who is able to do something that they wanted to do, that you've taken that spark of hope and been able to finally create something that connects with people. I think
Yeah.
it's important.
Exactly.
So yeah, thank you very much, Drew. Appreciate it.
Oh, one more place to find me. If you're,
Yes.
my wife and I do a restaurant themed comedy show Wednesday nights on Twitch. That's improv based because I'm an improv teacher
Okay.
and actor. So we bring on characters from Bistro Hoodie that you can interact with, and then we create a new character every week based off suggestions from the
Okay.
viewers. And we've got a family growing there a lot. It's small, but it's like everybody's starting to get to know each other, and it's a real fun community. So Bistro Hoodie live on Twitch is at 8 p.m. Pacific time. So it's late for East Coasters, but we have to do it after our kid goes to bed. So
Got it. Well, that's awesome. That I will look that up. You said Wednesday nights at 8 p.m.
Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Yeah,
Awesome.
Bistro Hoodie live.
Well, Drew, thank you again very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.